Now the toughest days you've been through, I'm in the real for your brother. God moves on his own time, and he made it clear to you, brother, see the finish line. I visualize realities I wanted, then invented mine. And how you started, how you finished, word to the finish line. Like I'm in the pistol, where's my passion? It's your energy.
All right. Welcome back to the Coach's Corner podcast. We are on episode 32. I just had to look it up so I didn't get it wrong this time. That's something I'll have to do moving forward. And we've got a very, very special guest, a dear friend and client of ours, Kristi Espinoza. Really excited to have you here. And Kristi is a healing coach and advocate and also a women's life coach. She's got a ton of experience around healing and really helping women ascend into their greatness that they already have within them. So excited to dive into your story, Kristi. And I think that's a really good place for us to start. So I'd love to hear, Kristi, if you could share with the audience, how'd you get involved in coaching and what led you to the space?
Well, first, hi guys. So great to have this experience with you. I feel so comfortable. I knew from the very beginning that you are the partner for me. And thank you for having me. This is exciting and nervous.
Of course.
How did I start? Okay, so I've been thinking about this a lot lately. As you know, as our podcast was coming, and I think it all started for me when I became a mom. I never had an opportunity to sort of look at myself before that, and it happened really quickly for me. I never knew if I wanted to be a mom, and then one day I couldn't imagine not being a mom. It was like a snap of a finger. And once, I became pregnant and I gave birth and I became a mom, like all of a sudden, something came into clarity, like a deep, deep knowing that if I was going to be the mom that I wanted to be, the best, kind, patient, loving mom, I had to learn to love myself and accept my flaws and do the healing work of childhood traumas and just looking at myself first in order to exemplify or demonstrate what it means to love yourself and to know your self-worth to my son. So that was the catalyst, was really becoming a mother. And it was almost like on my own, it didn't seem worthy. I didn't seem worthy of doing that work, looking inwards. But once I brought another human into this world, and I realized that we don't really learn from what our parents say to us. We learn by observing how they show up in the world. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, okay, I got to do the work. Mm-hmm. If I want him to be kind, if I want him to be loving, if I want him to be empathetic and compassionate, I had to become those things. And that is when my journey started. I enrolled in a program. It's an actual physical place called the Optimum Health Institute down in San Diego is where I visited, but they have another location. And the program is centered around mind, body, and soul healing. They address the trifecta. I went one time. The program is 3 weeks, but as a parent, you can't really leave for very long. So I did 1 week. And I was a converter. I walked out of this place feeling like I had wings, like I felt lighter in many levels, physical and spiritual and mental. And I was just instantly, hooked. So I went back 8 more times, each time completing a week. So since the program is 3 weeks, you can kind of pick and choose once you complete the 3 weeks, which week you want to do. But every single time I went, I extracted something new. because change, I feel, especially at the time, I didn't know anything about life coaches. I didn't have guidance. I didn't have, like a mentor or anything. I was just kind of like doing it all on my own. And it takes time, right? And it's only a week out of like in a whole year. And even if I went back a couple of times a year, it's only a week or two here and there. And although really, really impactful, it's like slow steps.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my mom got diagnosed with lymphoma in 2019, summer of 2019, when all of my knowledge that I had gathered throughout the last 8 years really became like a forefront of helping her, sort of heal her body the holistic way, and just looking at all the other options that she had before having to go into chemotherapy or any other traditional sort of treatments available.
Mm-hmm.
And then magically, a company that has a program for life and health coaching found me on social media, for which I'm so grateful, because as soon as I saw the opportunity, it was yet another sort of like light bulb. It was like, wait, I can actually make my life be what I am so passionate about, teaching others how to take care of themselves. It was just like, wow, yes, of course, duh. It's what I love. It's what I'm like great at. And it's what I'm passionate about. And that connected with, the impact, the exponential impact that I would have in the world. It's not just a single person, but I chose to work with moms because it's that, again, exponential impact is when the moms do the healing work, then they are, sort of helping their children see and have better lives, right? And then these children will raise their children in that sort of like mindset as well of healing and self-love and compassion and service. So that's my story. And then, of course, I enrolled in the coaching program, graduated 2020, and gave myself about a year before I could enroll into the next level, mastery, because timing and finances at the time. But then I graduated mastery just this past February. Just to finish up the story about, my mom being diagnosed, she was asymptomatic for about 2 years, but unfortunately lost her battle this year in January. And you are actually familiar because I've been keeping you updated on this. But that also made the motivation and the drive for me to reach other women, because my mom was a typical giver. Just like give until it hurts, until it's like you have nothing else to give, and yet you keep giving, like completely leaving her, empty, just depleted, exhausted. And she just never saw herself as someone important enough or valuable enough to look after herself. And that was so heartbreaking to see, it just sort of really made it even more important, for me to step on the gas and do whatever it takes to reach as many moms as I can before they are faced with, life-threatening lifestyle illnesses that can be prevented by doing the inner work.
Yeah. There's a few things that I was taking some notes on that you mentioned that I would like to unpack. Number one, the first thing is you talked about loving yourself first. I definitely think that's like a huge thing that moms specifically I see all the time. They don't really take it to heart as far as like doing the work for themselves, to in return talk about how that's gonna, benefit the generations that they're creating, you know. So I think that's super important for you to uncover yourself, you know, as far as like how am I going to be able to show up at the best, the highest level possible for this human being that I brought into the world if I can't do it myself, you know. So I think that's one of the biggest things that even me, you know, like I've been trying to like think about personally, as far as like, you know, how is like what I'm doing every day for myself impacting what we're doing with Automated Coaching Engine, how I show up for my girlfriend, how I show up for my mom, my brother, you know, different things like that. So I think that's super important. But where would you say that like kind of light bulb came from? You know, like what did that really come from? Other than I know you mentioned, you know, like the actual pregnancy, things like that, but like what were the steps in the right direction, you know, to make that happen for yourself?
You know, the true healing and self-love didn't start until my family experienced like a change in like residence. Like we moved, but my husband's work stayed back about an hour and a half from where we purchased the home. So I found myself having, this is pre-pandemic, by the way, so everyone is at work. And so I had a lot of solo time. Now, mind you, women may not have this opportunity, but that is what it took for me to have the space, the physical space and mental and spiritual space to really focus on who I was and discover who I was, because I never had an opportunity like that. I didn't realize that I was an empath. I took a test. I'm also a highly sensitive person, HSP. That's also a real term. People can go online and take a test and realize. And once I was removed from, you know, being around my family all the time and we lived in the Bay Area, just the air was thick with ambition and sort of monetary success. It felt like everybody was like sort of clawing to just get the title, get the promotion, get the accolades for doing something amazing, you know, technologically wise. And I didn't realize that all of that was absorbing that night. Felt a lot of emotions. I've always felt a lot of emotions since I was a little girl, but never having a safe space to actually be and embody these emotions. And that was what the sort of change in our, you know, in our living situation provided, was for me really to feel what it's like to be in my own company. And over time I was like, oh my God, I really like me. Like, it's so easy. Like, I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to, you know, it was just so easy to be authentically myself. And that somehow fed into, gosh, when I feel good about myself, like, I just want to like make other people feel good, you know? And I showed up as this like ultimate version that I've always came across people in my life that I admired because they were like easy and they were authentic, and you could tell they knew where their heart and where their soul laid. And I was so enthralled with their existence. And then when I started liking myself, I was like, I don't have to just admire and always wonder, gosh, what would that be like to be authentic, to be like one of those people that I admire? I can now become this person. And so there was like an actual, you know, realization of like, yes, that is it. That is what I'm going to do. And of course, you know, through all the trainings and coaches, and like I read so much, I just have a voracious appetite for knowledge and self-development. So I'm just, you know, exposed to all kinds of magical people in the world that I follow and that I look up to. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it was basically the time and the space that I found myself in that really sort of triggered that, like, what do I like? What don't I like? How can I, you know, in those special moments of where I felt so good, I was trying to figure out what it was, right? What was it that made me feel good? And slowly I started sort of like creating a map of the things that I was going to invest more time into, and what were the things that I would sort of slowly move away from. And it wasn't an easy thing, as you would imagine, like telling your son, like, oh my God, I love you so much, but your energy is driving me crazy right now, right?
Yeah.
It's like it, or even my husband, it's like it's difficult, but I teach women and moms how to do that as well, because they see the results of when you set your boundaries and when you show up authentically, when you meet your own needs, when you do the self-care. We become the ultimate versions of ourselves, that we fill our cup. So whatever spills, it's like to everyone around us.
Mm.
And it's like this easy thing of like, oh yeah, when mom says I need to go on a hike right now, we can either choose to go with her, or we can just let her do it, because when she comes back, she'll be like more centered, more patient, more understanding. So it was like this, mutually beneficial sort of journey, experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like what you said about solo time. That's one of, like, it's funny because me and Mike were talking Friday night, and we were on the phone for like 2 hours. It's like Friday night, like a lot of my friends on the island, are out at the bars, having fun with friends, whatever. But that's honestly one of the biggest things that I've realized myself that I really enjoy is like just me being in my own thoughts, like giving myself space, to be in my own thoughts. And so like a lot of times, like, I'll work out without headphones in, without music or anything, or I'll go for long walks with no device, no nothing, to basically bother time. And that's one of the biggest downloads that I'll have like during those time periods. It's just like, what am I able to uncover about myself during that time period that's going to translate to a better me? And one of the biggest things that you said that correlates with that is when I feel good, I can help others feel good as well. And so that's one of the biggest things that I've like tried to communicate even to like my girlfriend and stuff is like, hey, I'm going to go on a beach walk. I'm not saying you can't come, but I really am doing this for me. It's one of these things like I just need to go like have some like me time. I need to just kind of like sit in the thoughts that I'm having in my head and, just figure out the next direction. And when I return, just like you said, everything's going to be all roses and daisies, and life's going to be all good. So I really like that because I feel like in today's world, especially, like I have a lot of friends in this area that are like the opposite. They always have to be like with other people. Like we have like a group chat where it's like, hey, I'm going, to Huckapoo's for dinner. You guys want to come meet us? Like, hey, I'm going out on a boat ride this afternoon. You guys want to come meet us? Things like that. And I'm like, man, like these guys are like just so busy with everybody else. It's like, do they really understand like what it means to like be alone and like figure out what you really want? And I think that's like honestly one of the biggest things that you touched on to cap that off is like, figuring out what you need, what you want. So that way in return, you're not burning yourself out and you can show up, at the highest level for the people you love, and helping them become the best versions of themselves too. So I really like the overall like quote unquote solo time. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. And I think I had like a huge realization this weekend too, because of just like the simplicity of life, like how you were mentioning how like everybody is always striving for like the promotion, the this, the that. And like, while all that's like important in a sense of just like the greater overall impact or the goal or whatever you want to accomplish in life, like to an extent that's obviously important. But at the same time, it's like taking that step back to give yourself the space to understand how simple life is at the same time is so important, because that's what happened to me this weekend. Was me and my girlfriend rented paddle boards. So we were like on the lake with paddle boards and just like taking a second to just like put the paddle down, like lay down on my back and just like sit there and breathe for a second. And just like, truthfully, just with how fast we've been moving things. And I haven't done that in a while in nature of just like sitting still. And that used to be one of my big things. So like doing that for a second, it was like the first thought that came to my head was like, life is just so simple at its core. And like, we make it so complicated in so many different ways, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes the space, like you're mentioning, the solo time, the space that we create for ourselves helps us remind ourselves that like life is simple. And like, we need to, just like you said, that's a big thing that I've always done in various stages of my life, have been literally made a T-chart. Like, what are the things that serve me and what are the things that don't serve me? And like, the things that don't serve me, figure out how to stop doing those and focus on the things that do. And ultimately they're going to get me to where I want to be, you know? So I think it's so important. But another thing is Happy Mother's Day.
Yes.
Of course. Of course. We've got our
Mother's Day. We just had like a little get together at my in-laws with a little gazebo outside, and the boys made breakfast, fancy stuff. Well, fancy eggs Benedict. I consider that fancy breakfast.
That's next level. I can't make it.
They are fostering a mama kitty with her 7 kittens. So I have the sweetest photos of like the whole family holding a couple of kitties. There's like 7 of them, kittens. That was really, really wonderful. It was a beautiful celebration yesterday. But I wanted to say to Mike Puglisi, is it Puglisi?
Pugliese, but we'll go with Puglisi. I like it.
Pugliese, no, I like to pronounce people's names correctly. That's really important to me as a linguist.
It sounds Italian. I think it sounds cool that way.
Yeah, which I am Italian, so we probably butchered it over here when we made the transition into American.
I have a feeling that you used to be Puglisi and now it's Pugliese.
Yeah,
but I wanted
we Americanized it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what else can you do in America? So did you find that when you discovered the magic power of solo time, like, did you see how that inspired maybe your girlfriend or anyone else that you're in contact with? Like, that usually gives other people permission to ask for the same. Like, I saw my husband, I now my little guy, like, they all now have the ability to either ask for it or just go for it. Like, did you see? Yeah, right.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Like, one of the biggest things that me and my girlfriend, like, we adopted was, you know, the concept of the 4 agreements, you know, so like, just, you know, the art of communication as a whole, you know, so like, one of the biggest things that I've noticed from what you're talking about, as far as like asking, you know, for like my space, or even, you know, giving, like, not trying to be a hero and like giving her space when I can tell she's down, you know, things like that. Like, I think that's honestly probably one of the biggest things that is, like, you know, kept our relationship the way it is just being able to not make assumptions based around what it is, you know. So like, for example, when I'm asking, you know, for my time, it's like, hey, I'm not doing this because I'm pissed at you, or I don't like what's going on here. It's like, simply because I need to gather my thoughts. I just need to come back and into a safe space where we can be on a, you know, a level playing field as far as like our mindset. And like, same thing, you know, on the flip side is like, one of the biggest things that I used to do all the time is, you know, I could tell, or I could sense that she was, you know, a little disgruntled. Maybe it's work, you know, a friend, whatever the case might be. But like, here I come in with my superhero cape, like, oh, how can I save the world? And in reality, really all she needed was, you know, the time to herself, you know, to figure out like, how can I, like, you know, fix this, you know, like, how can I fix this problem? Maybe there is no solution, you know, maybe it's just one of those things that I have to figure out. So yeah, I definitely think, like, in to answer your question in a short version, like, I definitely think that, you know, the concept of the 4 agreements has helped out, like, my family in general when it comes to these things. But, you know, the concept of just like solo time has been like a big thing that I've been talking about, like, with my mom, my brother, you know, people, you know, just people that I'm close with, just because, like, I know how it affects me. And going into that a little bit, another step further, you mentioned becoming the person you admire. And I think that's a big thing. And so tying that into what we're talking about right here, I think that's the biggest thing too, is like figuring out like who you really look up to, what you really look up to, and doing those same things. So like me doing that, you know, me saving time for myself, I think is one of those things that, you know, my family members have picked up on as well, or people that are close to me, I've picked up on as well. Just, you know, as kind of like one of those things, like, it's normal to want to be by yourself. It's normal to to want to figure out things on your own and not always be looking for that hero or the superhuman, you know? So yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. Yeah.
That's wonderful. And also you said how your buddies are busy doing things, and there was a saying, I can't remember where I heard it. I'm really sorry about that. And, you know, but it was, maybe it was Oprah. She's the one I listen to the most, but it was, we are human beings, not human doings
Mm,
at the core, right?
yeah.
We're not born to do, we're born to be. And Mike, like you said, when you were just, you know, paddle boarding and then just lay down and allow yourself to be in that present moment of just being, isn't there like a new level of like elation? It's just like, yes, life is so simple,
Mm.
right? When we
Yeah.
can just find the time to just be and not always do,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
And I think, you know what I think is, besides the culture that we live in, it's just so driven, so fast, so loud. You know, we're all connected on social media. We're like comparing ourselves. We're like seeing what others are doing. We want to, you know, accomplish and do and achieve. But I think it's because ultimately people don't like how they feel when they stop doing. Have you ever had a friend who is like, I don't know what to do with myself, or people who are saying like, meditation doesn't work for me. It's just torturous, right? It's like, I can't even last a second. And I think it's because when you drop into your body, and I've done body scans with my clients that have blown their minds, because I drop them back into their bodies and they start feeling and appreciating the vessel that they have. It like instantly changes the way they feel about themselves. And then when they continue that practice, when you start connecting with your emotions and, you know, working through them and like allowing them to just exist, that's when the empowerment and the self-worth and the self-love, you know, starts to really flood. Because again, if you don't ever have time to just be and realize who you are, then you're always going to be looking for gratification or fulfillment outside of yourself, right? In the titles, in the, you know, the accomplishments and achievements of life. And it's so heartbreaking for me to see so many, you know, moms, any gender, really, anyone, feeling like what they do is what is where their worth lays, where it's simply by who they are, just the fact that they exist and they were born that with a purpose, whether they've discovered it or not, they're already worthy, you know. And that's where I like become really, really passionate, is to drop women back into their feelings and start creating that self-love from the inside out, and stop looking for external validation, which is what we all do. You know, unless you come to understanding that it's not what gives you happiness. It really isn't.
Yeah.
It really, really isn't. Happiness is just a state of understanding that you're worthy, whether you win an award or not, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think to that point too, like one of the biggest things that I've been like trying to shift my vocabulary to be is, instead of like I have to do, it's like I get to do, you know? And so I think like that's a huge thing that a lot of people could probably pick up on. But going like, you know, going alongside of that, there's another thing that I've like recently discovered through one of my mentors, Sean Whalen, who was talking about the concept of like self investments, you know, so kind of like what you were talking about as far as meditations, you know, journaling, like all of these things, like people don't realize that they're actually like self investments. They're things that you can do for yourself that's going to lead to a greater purpose. But tying that into, you know, one of the biggest things that I notice with like the people that are around me, family members, whatever the case might be, friends, you know, is like, I'm bored, you know, I'm like that like stay, I'm bored, you know, I'm like bored. I can't even think of the last time I was bored. I got so many tasks to do, you know? So like the biggest thing that I always like think about is like, you know, like you haven't figured out your purpose. If you're bored, you haven't figured out what you're supposed to be here doing. So how can you figure that out? Self-investments, you know, meditations, different things that are going to start to open up your mind to what you are really here to do, you know? So I feel like I've been gifted, like, I mean, I'm 27 years old. You know, like, I feel like I've learned a lot of different things that most people my age have no clue about. But like, those are honestly, those are a couple of things, like self-investments, figuring out like the real purpose, like, what are you really here to do? And, you know, just like identifying that like time for yourself, being by yourself, like those things are all okay, and like it should be necessary. And even to what you were talking about as far as helping moms, things like that, you know, like my mom, for example, was, or like my whole life still is, you know, is very much like, how can I do this for my kids? You know, how can I do this for so and so? How can I do this for that? You know, and it's like, man, just like do something for yourself for once, mom. You know, like just, you know, screw what anybody else wants you to do. You know, just do something that you want to do. You know, so like even to that point, I mean, I think like, you know, specifically moms are definitely in this point, like, or definitely in this stage. Like me personally, I definitely feel like I live my life for myself, and that's it. But I don't think that's a bad thing. Whereas a lot of people would like look at that and be like, "Man, you're really selfish." And I'm like,
But
"I
are
am
you really
selfish. You're right."
selfish?
Say that again.
Are you actually selfish?
I mean, I would say like me, like I care about myself, but it doesn't mean that I'm gonna like kick everybody's opinions off to the side, you know? Like I would say like I guess it really depends on how you define selfish, but like on a short
Yeah.
answer, I would say yes, I am selfish for sure.
And why is that a negative thing? Like,
That's the thing, is I
what I
don't
heard
think
you,
it's a negative thing. I
yeah,
think
what I
it's
heard you say is that when you take time to yourself to nurture yourself and your soul and your needs, is that you show up as the best version of yourself.
exactly.
How could that ever be a bad thing?
Exactly.
And I think it's exactly, again, is like about the word like selfish. That somehow it's gotten a bad rap. I don't know how that, you know, came about, but I completely disagree. Like, you have to be selfish, because again, like, you show up as the best version for everyone else when you do take the time to look after your needs and take care of yourself, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And even to that point too, not to cut you off, Mike,
no, you're good.
but I'm gonna lose this train of thought. I know it. So, but even to that point, like one of like going back, tying the selfishness into the self-investments, like to me, that's how I look at it. Like I'm selfish because I know the investments, the self-investments that I need to make every single day to show up at the highest level possible, whether it's for Mike, for my girlfriend, for the team, for you guys, you know, the clients, whatever that case might be. I know like I need to work out every single day. You know, I need to, you know, do some sort of journaling. You know, I need to, you know, learn, you know, I need to like, you know, engage in different things that are going to increase like my thought processes, things like that. Like I know there's core things that I must do every single day to feel normal. And if I don't do it, like I just don't feel good. And like that's like and it's I'm glad that you brought this up, because I really look at it as those two different things. Like if you're selfish, then you know what investments you need to make to yourself every day. If you're not selfish, then you haven't quite figured out what you need to do every day to be the best version of you.
And that's when you look and seek for validation and fulfillment outside of yourself. And now you're relying on other people. And how many of us can control how other people behave towards us? We can't. So why not meet your own needs so that you don't have to be like, you know, asking your girlfriend to make you feel loved or seen or heard. That is just sort of the cherry on top when you yourself can see yourself and love yourself and give yourself, you know, the sort of like a love, the self-care. That was one of the most amazing things that I discovered in my journey, is that I needed throughout my relationship with my husband before this, awakening sort of was that I seeked to feel, desired or loved or what have you. Like all of the needs that I had, I like looked towards him to meet them. And once I started doing the self-care, all of a sudden, I didn't have that need. You know what I mean? When it happened, it was like just extra. But because I was able to sort of like meet my own needs, I mean, I can even give myself a massage, right? Like we have a massage chair, I don't really need him for that. And I think that really kicked our relationship to a new level, because I would imagine before that it was feeling or doing things out of obligation. And like, what if he comes home and he's had a bad day, or he's tired and, he needs to like just relax. Now I'm sitting around going like, I guess I'm not as important to you because you're not doing the things that I need from you. Right. And
Yep.
it's creating conflict. So when we become selfish and we start taking care of our own needs, we're able to now, when he comes home, then I can perhaps show him some extra love and empathy and compassion, right? Instead of him coming home and me having to like, I need to feel loved, by you.
100%. And like to that point, like the word to kind of like expand on that, like the word selfish has had that negative connotation because truthfully 99% of people in the world do think that they have to fill everybody else's cup before their own, right? So like because they see some people who are filling their own cup before filling others, now that has a negative connotation around it, because the majority of individuals see it as I have to fill somebody else's before I fill my own.
Right.
So now the masses have given this negative connotation to the word, because it's like, why is this guy or this woman or this person doing that? They should be helping these people, they should be helping. And it's like, well, I do help these people, but I help myself first so that I can help them even better,
Right. Yeah.
And it's always interesting talking about like external validation. I think that was like probably the biggest thing that I was able to like separate myself from when I went through my coaching programs in like 2020. I think in general, like pretty much every young man who starts a business gets very externally validated or like gets focused on external validation, because it's like you're just thinking like, how do I make money? And especially if you're in a position where you need to, it's like that becomes your core focus, is just this, like money, how do we do this? And I noticed like myself just being gravitated towards that with previous businesses that me and Mike owned. And that's actually how Automated Coaching Engine even came about, was us like detaching from how do we grow the biggest business in the world that makes all this money, to like, how do we create something that just impacts people at a higher level? You know what I mean? Like, let's not focus on the dollar amount. Let's focus on service, and then allow the dollars to be the next step to creating that impact. Like it just comes naturally when you focus on that,
And what's the difference? What's the difference for you now between having to work for financial, whatever, freedom versus purposefully, making an impact in the world?
Yeah, I mean, it's a game changer in a lot of ways, because I think you previously, when you look at it as like this money driven activity of like, how do we just create this income and this money and all these big things, when you just look at it as that, oftentimes you create burnout because you're overworking yourself and you're not looking at like, and you're also not focused on the emotional wins of business. And I think that's an important one that I've realized recently, is that like in business, you have financial wins, but you also have emotional wins, and the emotional wins come from service. You know what I mean? So like getting off a one-on-one call with a client and having them say at the end of the call, this has been so helpful, yada, yada, like that's an emotional win that now pushes you forward and closer to that purpose. Whereas if you're just focused on the money all the time, first off, it's going to feel like a roller coaster, because if you just focus on money, money is always going to go up and down, and like you're always going to feel like a roller coaster. Whereas if you focus on service and just giving, it's just a byproduct at that point, and like what you get in return in mass consistently is the like heartwarming, like, okay, I'm serving people. So now you're filling your own cup in a way where it's like focused on service as opposed to just how do I grow this, you know? So I think the biggest difference is that it's like you get the emotional wins, not just the financial wins. And like you can also allow those emotional wins to get you through the hard times where the financial wins aren't there. You know what I mean? And that's a big one is business is a roller coaster by all means. Like no matter what level you get to, there's always ups and downs. And when you have the emotional wins consistently, then that allows you to get through those hard times and focus on moving the mission forward, you know?
Yeah. Beautiful. You wake up every morning, I would imagine, like wanting and ready instead of like, you know, like dreading, like so many of, you know, in America, so many people wake up going like, oh my God, this is the last thing I need to do, to be driving to work and sit in traffic and do a mindless job just for the paycheck. When you find your purpose and you like put serving others at the forefront, it's a game changer. Like you said, it's like you wake up like inspired, right? To be selfish, to take care of yourself, to fill your cup so that you can like give to others. It's like, you know, it's no longer work.
Yeah.
It's no longer work. It's a purpose. It's a journey. It's life.
Yeah, 100%. And then it becomes even more important, like you're saying, to fill your cup before pouring into others because of that, because of the fact that like when you are focused on service, you have that understanding. So they really like play hand in hand, you know, it's like you start to learn the concept of self-love and like getting yourself to the point where you're filling your own cup before others. From that experience, you now find a purpose or a passion in something you want to do. And then when you pursue that passion and consistently fill up your own cup, now you can focus on serving others before anything else without feeling like you're losing out on something or you're not being productive, you know?
Give until it feels good, not until it hurts.
Yeah.
100%. Love that. This has been awesome. I love this one.
Yeah, it's been a great combo. I've been thinking about a lot. I took a lot of notes here, and
we can keep going.
Yeah, legit. You did a great job. I love it. Yeah, no, I actually have a call coming up in 4 minutes, but this conversation has been super powerful, Kristi. You did amazing with sharing your message, and I know this one will help a lot of people and a lot of listeners out there. So I'm excited to get it out into the world, and it'll be quick.
From your mouth to their ears.
Yes, exactly, 100%. So with that being said, I want to give you an opportunity to just let people know where they can find you, where the best place is to reach out to you if they want to, you know, get to connect with you. So where would you say is the best place to connect with you?
I'm most active on Instagram. Second most active Facebook, and my handle on Instagram is Krespinos. It's like Kristi Espinoza with a double Z at the end, but Krespinozz. I hope I spelled that right. And just Kristi Espinoza on Facebook.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, reach out to her.
And I do have a website, KristiEspinozawellness.com.
Beautiful. Yeah. Check those out.
Yes.
Definitely connect, follow, friend, all that stuff. She's got incredible message that everybody needs to take in. So I appreciate your time, Kristi. Great to have you on.
You guys as my partners, and you know, I'm wishing you all the success and impact in the world that you wish and desire. Your hearts are in the right place. I sense that from the beginning. You may be young, but you're, you know, ahead in your years, to be honest. Your wisdom and your purpose shows up, and I sense that. So thank you for having me on the podcast. This was not as painful as I imagined. Thank you for making it so easy, and
of course,
chatting with you guys.
Of course. Thank you for being on, and grateful for your words as always. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kristi.
Bye, guys.
Yeah. I'm on the expensive mic today. I might sound a little different.